Today we have an above ground round pool. This is a 24-foot diameter pool. It needs the liner replaced very badly. Now I have had this pool for 20 years. It's, believe it or not, the original liner. It is way overdue and needing replaced. The color is terrible. It's a beaded liner, so it just fits into a channel all the way around the top. And as you can see, it's pulling off in several places. Also, I've patched the bottom of it a few times over the years. It's just time for a new one. So we're gonna go ahead and show you how to do that. And like I said, this is a beaded liner. There's different kinds of liners. There's overlap liners. There's the unibead style, and there's the beaded liner, which is what this one is. Today, we're gonna go ahead and cut this out of here, get rid of it, smooth out the bottom, and install the new one. The floor is really unlevel in here and rough. So it's gonna take a lot of raking and smoothing to get this thing in good shape. You need to drain your pool. I just used a hose, but you could use a pump and a bigger hose, make it much faster.
Now it's time to get inside your pool and take all the screws out of your skimmer faceplate. So go ahead and start removing all these screws, and have someone on the outside of your pool supporting that basket assembly so it doesn't just fall off. These faceplate screws are probably the only thing holding your basket in place. However, in my pool here, there actually was 4 more screws holding the basket on, kind of behind the liner, which you'll see here in a second. So pull the liner bead out of the bead receiver channel and just pull it out of there. You can also just cut it out of there since you're replacing the liner anyway. And then I was able to find the 4 screws that were holding in my basket assembly. Again, you may not have these 4 screws at all.
Okay, that's good. It's trash. Pull down.
Now it's time to remove your return jet. For me, my return actually has a light built into it, so it has this electrical wire going into it. Made it a little bit annoying to unscrew because the wire kept tangling up, but just unscrew it and get it out of there. It's pretty straightforward.
So now it's just time to cut this up and get it out of here. You can do it in different ways. I've seen people cut it in almost like a pizza and just roll up the little pieces, throw them away. I do have a little bit of water left in the low spot over here. I'll probably just try to gather this up so the pools and pick it up, throw it out all over the top here. Watch out for your little froggy friends. Little tree frog here.
Now it's time to cut out and get rid of your old liner. There's no really right way to do this. Just go ahead and cut it up as small as you need to cut it to get it out of there, to be able to lift it out of there. I have a beaded liner that just presses in a channel along the top, so I can just pull out the top edge all the way around here. If you have an overlap style liner, you'll have to remove that top cap around all the way around your pool in order to pull that liner out from the top of your wall. I had some water still left in my pool there, and I couldn't quite get it all drained out. I tried to drain it with the hose, just didn't really work. I ended up just cutting the liner out as is and letting that water just kind of drain into the sand, and then found it easier to just dig a drain ditch from the bottom of my pool, basically underneath the pool wall, and let that water just kind of flow out from underneath the pool wall. Our pool had a layer of foam in between the sand and the bottom of the liner, so here I am trying to grab that old waterlogged foam and pull it up and start getting it out of the way. That waterlogged foam was so heavy we couldn't really lift it very easily, so we had to cut it up in several small pieces just to get it out of there. Pretty hard to cut with all that sand stuck to it, so just do the best you can. If you have some standing water on top of the sand, all you have to do is, like I said before, is just dig a little trench, a little ditch, and then dig underneath your pool wall, and then make the trench kind of go away from your pool so that it drains out of there. It'll drain pretty quickly.
Okay, we decided to go ahead and get rid of the center drain that was in here. We never used it, and it's just one more spot that could potentially leak, or the pipe that goes up to the filter basket could potentially freeze and bust in the wintertime. So just got rid of that thing, fill it in with sand. Okay, it's the next morning. We're gonna get in here and use the rakes and level it out as best we can. The pool has started to have some paint flaking off the walls, and I thought might as well spray paint it with some primer over all those spots. That's what all this stuff is. There was one kind of rusty area at the bottom of the wall over here. We sanded that rust off with a little brass wheel on a drill and then painted over it last night, so it should be nice and dry now. And if you need some sand, I just went to a box store and got some mason sand, which is a type of sand that's nice and clean and doesn't have any rocks in it or anything like that. So it's good to use to fill some low spots if we need it.
Now we're just inside the pool, just leveling it out and raking it out as best as we can. My pool was really bad. It had a lot of unlevel spots and a rough bottom, so it's taking us quite a long time to rake this out. I did buy a bunch of bags of that masonry sand. I recommend to have at least 10 bags on hand. You can always take it back to the store if you don't need it, but when you need it, you need to have it around you instead of having to run to the store. We ended up using 12 or 13 bags because I had a couple of pretty big low spots to deal with here, and I had to fill in that center drain that I removed. We're just raking it out, and I have this tamper, and I'm just tamping out the sand, trying to make it as level as I can. I've seen people take like a yard roller and roll it around in there. I didn't have a yard roller, so I'm just using this tamper, getting it as flat as I can in there.
All right, we've got a pretty good and level in here, filled in on most of the low spots that we can find, and I'll continue sort of tamping it out. Instead of using sand to form the coping on the side, we bought this kind of styrofoam stick-on coping that you can just kind of put on there and sticks on to the edge, and it goes all the way around. It's fairly cheap for what it does. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video, but we're going to put that down now all the way around and then keep working on the sand, getting it as level as we can. I thought I would share something I learned while doing this. As you'll see later in the video, we did put in pool floor pad and wall foam. If I had this to do over again, I would put that floor pad down and the wall foam on first and then the pool cove after that. Because what we ended up doing was putting the pool cove on first, and then when we put the floor pad down, we were trying to tuck that floor pad underneath the cove, and that was just work that we didn't really need to go and have to do. So if you had to do it over again, here's a little diagram that kind of says what order I would recommend doing this in. So number one, get your sand floor how you like it. Number two, put that floor pad down and get your wall foam on if you're going to use that. You don't have to use wall foam or floor pad technically, but it does add a little bit of a barrier, extra protection for your liner. And then get that pool cove down if you're going to use the styrofoam pool cove. Again, you can set up a sand pool cove. If you have enough sand, you can kind of make your own cove with sand before you put the floor pad down. Here we are continuing to put down that styrofoam coping around the bottom edge, and here I am also just tamping out the rest of the sand and just trying to make it as good as I can make it. Okay, we've got the sand tamped down well and as level as we can get it. It looks pretty good. And now we've got some foam for the bottom here. So don't make the mistake I did. Go ahead and put your foam on first and then the coping. But I'm gonna go ahead and put this foam on, get it centered. And if we can tuck it under the coping, fine. If not, it'll be all right. We got the floor foam in. We just tucked it underneath the coping. Wasn't that big of a deal. And now we got the wall foam there, a big roll of it. We're gonna put the wall foam on. Now we didn't have wall foam before, and it's kind of optional. We thought it might provide a little bit of insulation, maybe keep the water temperature a little bit warmer in our pool, and it doesn't hurt anything. So we're gonna go ahead and put it on. Putting the wall foam on is pretty easy. You just spray the walls and the foam with some of this spray adhesive. I bought 2 cans of the spray adhesive. I'll put a link to it in the description, but I had plenty to do my 24-foot pool with the 2 cans. And then you just kind of glue it on all the way around. It's pretty straightforward. When ordering your liner, make sure to get the right size. It's easy to measure the diameter. Just measure across there and you'll get the diameter pretty easily. The pool wall height needs to be measured from the outside of the pool. This is pretty important. Get on the outside of your pool. If you can't see the bottom frame structure of your pool, dig down a few inches until you can see it, and then measure from the bottom of your frame of your pool to the top of the wall here. That'll give you the pool wall height you need to order. It's probably 48 or 52 or 54. Mine happens to be the 52-inch height. If you measure it from the inside, chances are the sand that's in there or the coping on the bottom is going to throw off your measurement. That's why you have to do it from the outside. When opening the box, don't use a knife, and also watch out for the staples that hold the box together. You don't want to poke a hole in your new liner. Now it's time to spread out your liner inside your pool there. The instructions say to make sure it's at least 70 degrees. but it really needs to be warmer than that in my opinion. I'm doing it here when it's about 80-ish. When you get it in the sun, it just spreads out and opens up and flexes way more easily than when it's cool out, especially when it comes time to actually stretch it in place. You want it to be nice and sunny and warm in there. And now we're just taking that top bead of the liner and just putting it down into the bead receiver channel, or that plastic channel along the top. We're just really working it in, kind of working it all the way around the pool there. Also, make sure you take your shoes off if you're walking around on your dry liner. You don't want to tear it up. When we got to the end, we had a little excess liner left, or like a little wrinkle, and didn't really know what to do with it at first, so I ended up removing some of the liner there and kind of working that, stretching that wrinkle out, putting it back in. Then we figured out we could have just left it in place and just kind of grabbed the bead, and you can slide it in that channel left and right and kind of stretch out the wrinkles. Alright, I was finally able to turn the water on here. And I also got in here with a nice wide push broom, and this is a good way to sort of push off the wrinkles that are maybe in your floor. You can kind of use this broom and get the wrinkles out. Okay, the water is now pretty much covering the bottom of the pool, and all the wrinkles are out of the bottom. There's still some wrinkles in the walls of the pool, but as the water weight starts adding, it'll start stretching that liner down and work those wrinkles out of there. All right, so there's one little area of our liner that we can't get to stay in the bead channel. So that bead channel, or the bead receiver, I guess it's called, is actually kind of worn out and stretched out, and it's too wide and it won't really hold the bead. It just kind of pops right out when you stick it in there. This part of the liner just won't stay in. As soon as I get more water in here and it gets some weight, pulls this down some, it just pulls it right out. I even put a bead lock strip in there too, and it still won't hold it. So I've got a new section, a new 4-foot piece of this bead receiver. This is what the bead actually goes into. So I'm going to take the top rail of the pool off in this section and replace that bead receiver piece, which is this piece. This is my old one here. It is just worn out on this one section for some reason. So here's the old channel I pulled out. Look how wide and kind of worn out the channel is. It just really wasn't holding that bead in there very good. Plus the right side of it had cracked. You can find replacement bead receivers like this on Amazon. I'll put links to them in the description. Because I bought 2 replacement pieces, I'm gonna go ahead and replace these 2 sections because the other one beside it looks a little bit worn out as well. Did I mention we have lots of tree frogs around here? Now that I have the bead receiver channel replaced with a new one, it's time to re-stretch this liner back on in this little spot. So here we are trying to stretch this back on. We've got some water in here, so we have to pull kind of hard to stretch the liner up into place. But we do manage to get it in place, and I'm happy to report after I filled the pool up, it has held just fine. The pool's got plenty of water in it. The water's just below the return line hole here on the inside. And I'm going to go ahead and put that return jet in there. I'll show you how to do that, and then the basket next. Now this pool, like I said, is 20 years old, so I have a little bit of rust under this basket. I don't think it was really leaking. I think it was just 20 years of swimming in this pool and kids playing in it, splashing the water out of the basket, constantly running down right there. So I primed up, the gasket area to make it, sand it off that rust. At a later point, I'll sand off the rest of the rust there and paint that. It won't affect installing this basket though for now. On the inside of the pool here, my water level is a little higher than it could be. It's rained on me overnight about a ½ inch and filled it up a little bit more than I like. But feel around and find the hole for the return line. For me, it's right here, and my water level is just below it. I could, like I said, I probably should have done this when the water was an inch or two lower, but it'll be fine. It's not going to leak out on me. So let's go ahead and get our brand new jet, and I'll show you how that goes in. I bought this kind of cheap replacement jet here. I'll put a link to this in the description also. But you'll see how it's made. So it goes in this way with the kind of eyeball on the inside, and you can adjust which way the eye points, which way you want the water returning in your pool. So I'm going to go ahead and unscrew the eye part. So the eye is just held on by this retaining cap. So I'm going to take that off and set it to the side for later. Now this is the piece the eye retaining ring screws into. Now on the back side here, let's take off the big plastic nut on the back. And you'll see it came with some new gaskets. So it probably has 3 gaskets, 2 rubber and 1 cork. There's some confusion on where this cork gasket goes. I want to clear that up. You put 1 rubber gasket on the inside of your pool up against the liner. You press this through, cut the hole out, press this through your wall, and then you put another rubber washer on the outside right against your wall of your pool. The cork gasket goes on last. And the whole point of a cork gasket, and this is true on this pool return line, it's true on engines that you work on, everything else that has a cork gasket like this up against a rubber gasket. The whole point of the cork is so when you're tightening that nut, it doesn't bind up and twist the rubber gasket behind it. The cork allows you to tighten it evenly and apply even pressure. That's why it goes on the outside right against that nut. Here's the main body of the jet. You can take it apart here. The bigger part is what we'll insert in against the liner on the inside of the pool. Once it's through, we'll wrap the threads here with some white sealant tape just to prevent leaks, and then screw it together, and this is what your hose obviously attaches to. Let's go ahead and put the rubber gasket on this piece here, and let's go and cut this in. All right, we're back on the inside of the pool. Again, find the hole. You'll feel it when the jet gets about in the right spot, right in that hole. And then you're just gonna hold pressure on this so that when you cut it on the other side, on the outside of the pool, it just goes right in. You can see the jet pressing on this liner now. So I've got it centered up. I'm just gonna cut a little X in it here. Always makes you nervous cutting through a new liner. And just widen out that X a little until it goes through. You should be able to force it through there. There we go. Now we can take your razor knife or your pocket knife, whatever, and cut around that, trim off that excess liner right there. Now we're going to go ahead and put this locking nut on the back side here on the outside of the wall to hold it on. Like I said, rubber gasket against the wall. Cork one next. Tighten her up. Get it as tight as you can with your hand. And if you have a pair of like big channel locks, you can put on there and tighten just a little bit more if you can. If not, hand tight should be pretty good. You can put like a rag over it, get a better grip on it, and tighten it up. All right, now we're going to put some thread sealant tape, regular white tape, around the threads of this, because this is what your hose attaches to. This is what water is going to be going through, and you don't want water leaking back out. The eye assembly on the other side, you don't care if water leaks there because it's just going to leak into your pool a little bit. So we don't need to put tape around the eye retaining part of this. It just really is to hold your eye in the right position. So wrap it around in a clockwise way like this. That way when you tighten it, kind of against the way I wrapped the tape. All right, let's try that. Okay, got that tape on there. Go ahead and install this. It shouldn't go in there loosely. If it does, you need some more tape. So we're done out here on the outside. Now let's get that eye piece put on the inside. Let's go ahead and thread this piece in. This is what holds, this is going to be what holds the eye assembly. Again, no need to tape it because if it leaks, who cares? It'll just leak into the pool. We'll put our eye in there and get the retaining nut started. Kind of point where you want your jet to come out. I like mine pointed to the side a little bit to circulate the water. And just tighten that up. All right, inspect your faceplate, make sure there's no cracks. My old one actually did have a crack in one of the corners on the top. So I did order this replacement front plate. And you can get these fairly cheap. I'll put a link in the description for you. You need to get yourself a new gasket. You probably don't want to reuse your old gasket. Mine was all worn out. Yours probably is too. So do yourself a favor and put a new gasket on now. I'll put a link to this one on the description, but it's got kind of, it's sort of 2 layers and it just fits inside of the, hole for your skimmer basket there. All right, now that we have that new butterfly type of gasket installed on the pool wall, it's covering both the outside and the inside, we're ready to put the faceplate or locate the faceplate and poke the top corner holes through with the screws. So you can go ahead and feel where the hole, the opening is here. You can kind of see my finger tracing it. I've already poked my hole, but the whole point is look on the outside of the pool where the screw hole is. Find it. You can see the liner flexing when you get to the right spot, and then just poke your screw through all the way through there and locate where that top corner screw goes. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. I've already done it, but for me it was right here. We're going to poke it through there, make sure you get it through the line. Now you got your 2 screw holes located. Again, you can use a screwdriver to get that screw started through the liner. Now we're going to pull them back out. Grab your faceplate. With this butterfly type of gasket that we use on the outer wall, it goes on the outer wall and the inner wall. It's covering it, so we don't need another gasket right on the faceplate, because the faceplate has these little ridges that will sandwich the liner against that rubber gasket that's already in there. Now, if you don't have a butterfly type of gasket, if you just have 2 separate gaskets, you will put one right on the faceplate and one right on the outside of the pool wall there. That's how those get located. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and get my top corners on, get my faceplate located. Make sure it goes through your gasket and comes out outside. Now we're ready to get these started on the actual skimmer assembly. So if you have a helper to hold the skimmer on while you screw this down, that's ideal. If not, you can manage, but it's a little bit more tricky. And we're going to get this top corner started. Okay, just start it. Okay, now I've got it started with the 2 screws. Now we want to go ahead and get the bottom corner started now and poke through there. You want to make sure your gasket's in a good position and in place. You can reach through there, make sure you can see it all the way around. Make sure it's not bunched up or anything like that. Let's try to get this next bottom one in. Okay, I've got the 4 corners started. I'm going to do the same thing on all the other bolts, just get them started. I'm not going to over tighten them. I'm just going to get them started into the basket. And then that final tightening, because I don't want to overdo it, I don't want to over crank it, I'm just going to get a screwdriver and do the final tightening just by hand. I don't think it matters on the tightening sequence, but for peace of mind, you can go ahead and tighten them in a little bit of a crisscross pattern like you would the lug nuts on your tire. Make sure you have yourself a sharp knife. Make sure you don't drop the knife because it'll poke a hole in your new liner. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and cut this out. Again, be careful. We're gonna cut out the bottom first. Now the sides. And finally the top. All right, I think that finally makes a job complete. And hopefully this video of replacing your pool liner gives you some confidence to do this job yourself. I think anybody can do this with a little bit of time on your hands. Just make sure you get the right size of pool liner and the right size of faceplate and gaskets and all that kind of stuff. And it's really not that bad. Thanks for watching the Repair Nut videos. Give me a thumbs up on this video and follow for more useful videos. Here's a few links to some other videos that you might like to watch.